Joining us is a man who is no stranger to the Observer. Let me say a pleasant good evening to Kuva South MP, Rudinath Indar Singh. Pleasant good evening, sir.
A pleasant good evening to you, Mikee K, and once again, my pleasure to be on the Observer program.
Thank you indeed. A lot has taken place today. I know you've been calling repeatedly for the proper personal protective equipment for fire officers. Also, you've been talking about the fact of the crime situation where the government seems not to be effective to grab the bull by the horns. Tell us, you met earlier with the fire officials. How did that go today?
We had a very fruitful and cordial meeting with the executive members of the Fire Services Association, headed by Mr. Gayelle at the association's headquarters in Barataria. Myself and Weed Mark, who is the shadow for labor affairs in the upper house of the Senate of Trinidad and Tobago. And they did indicate that nothing has changed in terms of their advocacy and what they have placed in the public domain as it relates to personal protective equipment for officers of the fire services. And we must understand that there is a sense of hopelessness, helplessness, and a lack of leadership from Prime Minister Dr. Rowley and the line minister, Minister Fitzgerald Hines. They have indicated to us that with respect to breathing apparatus, there's only about 10 to 15 which is fully functional, while there should be approximately more than 400 functioning or being provided within the operations of the fire services. Imagine firefighting gloves, the structural firefighting gloves. That has not been purchased for the last 6 years for firefighters, fire tenders, the acquisition. I do not know if you could recollect Minister Hines boasting that the government would purchase over allocated more than $20 million for the acquisition of fire tenders.
Yeah.
And that has not become a reality. The government is hiding now behind the procurement regulations in relation to the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act. When if they knew how to deal with this particular issue, this is something which should have been put in place. The ability to respond to hazardous material spills or accidents and so on, that is something that is totally out of their control. They have no hazmat, fire tenders, hazmat suits. That is another issue. The jaws of life, which is needed for vehicular accidents and so on. This is a woeful state in terms of virtually non-existent. They indicated to us that there are over 400 plus vacant positions to be filled on the regular establishment. And of course, the issue of tenure of security for auxiliary fire service officers and transitioning them into the established organizational structure. That is something, and they feel that they are being treated with a great degree of respect, because under the Fire Services Act, they are deemed to be essential services. And based on the government's treatment, they feel that they are not really classified as essential. And all I could conclude is that there is no sense of leadership from Prime Minister Rowley and Minister Hines. In fact, all I could conclude that they are jamming still. The city could burn down, as we would say, and Rowley and his entire cabinet are jamming. We do not know where he is at this point in time. We are told he's in Ireland, and look what transpired today, where that 4-year-old child head was severed, decapitated.
Yeah.
It is one of the most heinous acts that has ever been perpetrated on any child in Trinidad and Tobago. The young lady we are told sought protection was gunned down in Jarvis Street in San Fernando this morning. Look at the heinous attack, the outrageous attack on the farmer at Welcome Road in Kulupia. And the list goes on
and you're right. And you're correct, and it goes on and on. But let me ask you, I mean, usually we hear you on topics dealing with labor because you are the shadow labor minister. But this fell into your garden, apparently, this entire thing with the firefighters, because you said that now that people are dealing with arson and firebombing, we saw what took place on April 4th at HSM Motors, and you said that citizens are dealing with these things, but it was made personally aware of extortion when 3 business people came into your constituency office. You said business people were being sent pictures of their homes, their spouses, their children, and places of school, vehicles, etc. By these people who are extorting from them. I mean, when you look at it, I mean, really and truly, things have gotten totally out of control. But this seems to be expanding in different areas where you're talking about people that tell you, listen, if you don't pay us such and such, we know where your child go to school, we know your house, we know where you go to even worship. They have pictures of your movement. I mean, give us an idea of exactly what is taking place with this new brand of extortion that's going on.
Well, it is part of the lawlessness that has been allowed to flourish under Prime Minister Dr. Rowley as the head of National Security Council. And whether it was former ministers Edmund Dillon and Stuart Young, and now Fitzgerald Hines, it is clear that they have lost the war on crime, and we have moved from gun violence to robberies, carjackings, hijackings, and so on. And now this taxing is the component of it, one arm of it, is firebombing, or what we would call Molotov cocktails, to use the local parlance, China bombs, and so on. And it is very chilling. They are sending a message that if you do not pay up, we will come and destroy the sanctity of your home or your business enterprise. I mean, I draw no conclusions, but look what transpired at the AGC exchange lots in Cuba, which is in the constituency of Cuba South, where 2 members of the Foster family, may their respective souls rest in peace. They died. Their home was barricaded. The doors were barricaded with carry boxes and so on, and then firebombed. And this is why I'm saying that this is a very chilling and cool message which is being sent to members of the law-abiding community of our country and the business enterprise. So if you do not pay up, we will burn you down. And this is why I'm saying the city could burn down, Trinidad could burn down, as we say. In local parlance, we will say burn down, but at the end of the day, the city could burn down. And Rowley and Hines jamming still, we do not know when he will return from Ireland. Has he completed his tour of the golf courses and teeing off and putting and so on? And there's absolute silence, no communication from the acting Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago to send a message of reassurance. But then again, we will all be told we will spare no effort. It is a whole of government approach. The law enforcement agencies are working round the clock and arrest is imminent. But are we seeing the results where criminals are being brought before the judicial system of Trinidad and Tobago? And we were told, you could remember that the former Attorney General, Faris Al-Rawi, got up in the parliament. They even told, they said it outside of the parliament. We know the names, the addresses, the telephone contacts of all gang members and so on in Trinidad and Tobago. We know the number of gangs that are operating. Are we suppressing the operations of gangs? Are we flushing out gang members and so on? And from these acts of intimidation and what I would call terrorism, reign of terror which is being carried out under Rowley and Hines, and they have no clue in terms of arresting this war that is being carried out on the citizens of Trinidad.
The thing about it, comrade, is that we have a large regional audience that locks on here to Gayelle TV, and I get calls from people in Grenada and Dominica and other places. And they're trying to wait and try to calculate this because the declaration by the acting fire sub-officer, Patrick Anderson, Anderson Dick Jr., that John Public must die if he is sent to a fire and there's insufficient personal protective equipment. I mean, we can't expect these people to put their lives on the line, and at the end of the day, there's no way as far as ensuring their safety when they're carrying out their duties. And anyone from the outside looking in, it's hard enough being here in this country, and people are saying things like, we have the money, we have what it takes, but why are these things not being made a priority? I mean, some time back, I believe it was in Belmont, if I'm not mistaken, there was some hydraulic that was deemed not to be good. OSHA, I think, did not, it was eventually banned by OSHA for being unsafe. And then you had, I've spoken to the fire service, well, the former guy, Keon guy, and he revealed that 9 officers were seriously injured due to faulty equipment, and the list goes on and on. And then you compound it with the fact of what you're talking about, the crime situation, where in fact you have senior citizens who are afraid to leave their home. So God forbid if a fire breaks out, and here comes the fire officers without the proper equipment. So, I mean, is there any way of looking at this thing where the administration would try to understand that these things must be made a priority?
Well, Mikee K, you have analyzed it to pinpoint in a very precise manner. But I think, too, that the country needs to know that, and it was revealed in the meeting today, that criminals now are trying to disrupt the operations of the fire service, where they are making calls saying that a fire is taking place in area X, while they want to go and firebomb in area Y. They are calculating how much, how long it is taking for a fire truck or a fire tender to respond in a particular area and so on. So the next thing or stage of this war is that we may see fire stations either being attacked in a violent manner, so as to throw fire officers totally, of course, when criminals want to carry out their criminal activities, whether it is Molotov cocktails, firebombing, you name it, and the acts of intimidation. The government is totally disconnected. They are into their 90th year. They cannot get their priorities right. Their focus is skewed because you must remember, I am sure you can recollect, the Prime Minister recently at some meeting said, I am instructing the Minister of Finance to find $100 million to deal with the hotspot areas and so on.
That's right.
I am sure, and the country will not be upset if they take 20 million out of this 100 million to focus on getting personal protective equipment and dealing with the hydraulic lifts such as the Bronto Skylift, which fail. And if I can reveal here tonight also, I am in possession of authentic documents which have indicated that the fire services spend approximately $800,000 before this Skylift failed. And in addition to that, the substandard work that was found in relation to what was done by the main contractor and the subcontractor, and in addition to that, the contractors, in terms of their respective employees, were not certified, they were not retooled and so on. It is alarming. The fire services, in terms of its management, seems to have gone rogue. It is out of control. There is no leadership in terms of working with central government in terms of prioritizing what are the needs the MP for the constituency of Cuba South. There's the Point Lisas Industrial Estate. There's the Phoenix Park Industrial Estate. There's the Point Lisas Business Park. God help us if there is some major industrial accident, spillage of chemicals and so on the industrial estate, because we do not have the, besides the personal protective equipment, we do not have the specialized suits, the specialized tenders and so on to deal with spillage of hazardous materials and so on. So, I mean, you know, recently the country became very fun, and if not fun, but dealt with the reality of the character that is called Ezekiel. And as I said, Ezekiel can be forgiven for throwing down his mother's pot of stew. He can be forgiven for spilling the powder, which is his grandmother's powder. He can be forgiven for destroying the guest passport. But certainly, we cannot forgive Fitzgerald Hines as the Minister of National Security. We cannot forgive the Prime Minister as the head of the National Security Council, because they are failing the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago with their lack of leadership, their lack of priorities, and their lack of adequate financial resources to deal with the needs of the ordinary people of this country. I am focusing right now on the fire services, but what is the state of the police service as it relates to cars and bulletproof vests and you name it, in terms of the functioning of the police service and transitioning SRPs into the police service? Where's the scanners that they boasted about in terms of the ports of Trinidad and Tobago and so on? They boasted of a police management agency, authority, a border control agency and so on. 9 years they have promised these things and it cannot become a reality. And I'm saying that the only hope for the citizenry of this country is when the general elections are due, and it is called to vote out overwhelmingly the People's National Movement and ensure that Trinidad and Tobago is returned to a pathway of stability and progress under the leadership of Kamala Persad-Bissessar and the United National Congress.
Yeah, but you also mentioned, of course, you know, in the release that people were afraid of going to the Couva and Freeport police stations because they believed that after leaving the police stations, criminals would be aware of their reports. That doesn't give us as citizens any sort of confidence into this entire process. I mean, that's a very strong statement.
That is the reality. This is nothing that was fabricated or something fabricated by myself. 3 persons on different occasions came to the constituency office. They said, Mr. MP, we prefer to speak with you because, and I tried to rationalize, I said that the police officers will need to interview you to try to begin to accumulate evidence and so on. They said to me, we are bringing it to your attention because we feel as soon as we could go in to the Freeport or the Couva police station, but as soon as we leave the compound, we are of the firm opinion that criminal elements will be made aware of who made these reports, and it is a known fact through the length and breadth of this country that criminals are taxing small and medium-sized and even large businesses in this country. I live in the Caroni community, and the Central Division of the Police Service of this country, they are very aware. I do not know if you know the Caroni North Bank Road that leads to St. Helena.
Yeah.
The St. Helena Junction. A number of small businesses have closed down on that road that leads to St. Helena Junction simply because of the respective business enterprises, the owners, and their inability to pay the taxes. It is such an exorbitant sum. It is outweighing their revenue stream. They they are not able to make profits to pay their workers and to deal with the overhead costs. So they have opted to close down their businesses, and this is happening all over the country, and I'm sure, and I challenge the Prime Minister to tell me, the MP for Kuva South, that he is not aware of the level of extortion and taxing that is going on.
And the level of wastage when it comes to money. I mean, you look at the dry dock facility, the amount of money being spent there, security for TSTT, one of the managers, and all of this money could have gone in a direction to help these officers that need it. I mean, you know, as a country, you would think that we're developed enough that if it is the fire services has to respond to a fire, that at least they have the equipment. You know, and to hear otherwise, I mean, come on, it just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't add up. It shows a lack of priority on the part of the Prime Minister, the entire cabinet. And if you cannot prioritize, if you cannot meet and treat with the needs of first responders and so on to deal with challenges confronting the wider citizenry of the country into your 9th year of governing the country, something is definitely wrong as it relates to how you are governing, how you are leading. And that is why I'm saying that there is a sense of hopelessness, there is fear, there is trauma, there is panic. And I'm predicting it is not that endorsing or any member of the UNC is unpatriotic and so on, and do not want to see Trinidad and Tobago succeed as a country in terms of national security and a stable environment, economic growth and development and diversification and so on. But with this onslaught of crime and this reign of terror, you will continue to see a brain drain, and you will continue to see an exodus of law-abiding citizens from the shores of Trinidad and Tobago.
You're right. I want to thank you so much for taking time out to link with us here this evening. It's always a pleasure to have you on. And please stick on this issue. I mean, it's totally unfair to these fire officers who are risking their life, putting their lives on the line daily to get to work, want to reach out, want to help people, but don't even have the proper equipment or even the safety equipment to ensure that they can reach home to their families after their shift is over. I mean, I really don't know. Words can't describe. I'm certain that many of the viewers and people who are locked on are asking themselves, so where all the money gone? We hear about budget come, budget go, but there's no improvement. I don't think it's a matter of just bashing, but it's a matter of trying to pick sense from nonsense where it seems that logic does not exist. We are talking about fire officers. People don't sign on to go to a job where it is that they're not sure they're going to reach back home to their family. And that's all they're asking for is the proper equipment so they can do the job they're called upon to do. Thank you so much, Mr. Indar Singh. Please stay on this topic. We'll be checking with you periodically to get an update on what's happening as far as getting the proper gear for these officers.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure myself and all my colleagues in the UNC will continue to interface with you and the rest of Trinidad and Tobago in terms of highlighting the failure of this government, the lack of priorities, and as you would say, a logical sense of governing and ensuring that the ordinary citizen needs are addressed.
Thank you so much. Keep up the good work.